Forget everything you think you know about keeping mosquitoes away, because right now, somewhere in your neighborhood, someone is buying their third can of chemical spray this summer while their neighbor is sitting outside completely unbothered, surrounded by plants that have been doing this job for literally. That neighbor figured out something most people never do, and today you are going to figure it out too. Stay with me because plant number 6 on this list was studied in a university laboratory, and the results genuinely shocked the scientific community. And plant number 10 has been independently discovered by ancient civilizations on multiple continents, completely separate from each other, all arriving at the exact same conclusion. When that happens, you should probably pay attention. If you want a yard that mosquitoes genuinely want nothing to do with, hit that subscribe button right now because we are dropping new content every single week and you absolutely do not want to miss what is coming. Let us get into it. 10 powerful mosquito-repelling plants you should grow, starting with impressive and building toward the ones that will genuinely change how you experience your outdoor space. Plant number 1 is lavender. Let's call it the fragrant fortress. Lavender is probably already somewhere on your garden wish list. Most people want it for how it looks and how it smells. That silver-purple color, that clean, floral, almost medicinal fragrance that somehow feels both calming and invigorating at the same time. Here is the thing almost no one realizes. The exact same qualities that make lavender smell incredible to you make it completely intolerable to mosquitoes. Ancient Egyptians incorporated lavender oil into their embalming practices, partially because of its aromatic properties and partially because it functioned as an insect deterrent. Romans added it to bathing water, wove it into their linens, and positioned it throughout their living spaces, not purely for luxury, but for practical protection against biting insects. Medieval Europeans hung dried bundles near doorways and rubbed the leaves directly on exposed skin before heading outdoors to work. These people were solving a real problem without synthetic chemistry, and lavender was consistently one of their most trusted solutions. Modern science has now broken down exactly why it works. Lavender essential oil is packed with bioactive compounds, primarily linalool acetate, and camphor. Peer-reviewed studies have confirmed that these compounds carry measurable repellent activity against mosquitoes and other biting insects. Research focused specifically on Aedes aegypti, the species responsible for transmitting dengue and yellow fever, has shown that lavender-based compounds significantly interfere with that mosquito's landing and feeding behavior. Here is the actual mechanism. Linalool and camphor disrupt the olfactory receptors that mosquitoes rely on to detect carbon dioxide and body odors from potential hosts. Lavender does not just smell wonderful, it actively scrambles the sensory equipment mosquitoes use to find you in the first place. Practically speaking, plant lavender along garden paths, near outdoor seating, and at entry points to your home. The foliage passively releases aromatic compounds continuously, creating a scent environment mosquitoes avoid. Bruise the leaves between your fingers and apply them to exposed skin for a more concentrated effect. Lavender thrives in full sun and well-drained, slightly alkaline soil. It is drought-tolerant once established, needs almost no fertilizer, and returns reliably season after season. You are adding a perennial workhorse that costs you almost nothing in maintenance and pays you back constantly. Plant number 2 is citronella grass, the original mosquito repellent. If you have ever burned a citronella candle, you know the smell, but here is what most people do not know. That candle is a pale, watered-down version of the real thing. True citronella grass, Cymbopogon nardus or Cymbopogon winterianus, is a tall, clumping tropical grass that generates citronella oil at concentrations no candle manufacturer can come close to replicating. And growing it in your garden is one of the most direct and effective moves you can make against mosquito pressure. Communities across Southeast Asia, including in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Malaysia, have positioned this grass around homes and communal gathering areas for centuries. The oil was extracted. The science has now mapped the mechanism with precision. Citronella oil contains 3 primary active compounds: citronellol, geraniol, and citronellol. Each works on mosquito neurology in a distinct way. Citronellol disrupts the antennal receptors mosquitoes use to track warm-blooded hosts. Geraniol has been demonstrated in clinical research to be among the most effective natural mosquito repellents ever tested, with documented protection times exceeding 2 hours against 80 species in certain trials. The key difference between the candle and the plant is simple. The living plant releases these compounds continuously throughout the day without being lit, without burning down, and at far higher concentrations than any candle can deliver. Plant it near your patio or outdoor dining area, and you have created a living, breathing diffuser that never runs out. In cooler climates, grow it in large containers you can bring indoors over winter. It can reach 5 to 6 feet, so give it room to spread. Crush the leaves occasionally to intensify the release of oils in your immediate area. Plant number 3 is lemon balm, the gentle giant of natural repellents. Lemon balm might be the most quietly impressive plant on this entire list. It is almost impossible to kill, grows enthusiastically in nearly any condition, produces a delicious herbal tea, carries documented calming and antiviral properties, and repels mosquitoes. Melissa officinalis does not get nearly the credit it deserves. Ancient Greek herbalists noticed something interesting about lemon balm. Bees loved it. Biting insects stayed away from it. That dual reputation made it a plant that civilizations actively cultivated around homes and work areas. Medieval European monasteries maintained lemon balm in their garden plots, not just for medicinal preparations and teas, but because it made the outdoor working environment far more pleasant throughout the day. The science behind its repellent activity is genuinely interesting. Lemon balm contains significant concentrations of citronellol, the same compound responsible for much of citronella grass's effectiveness, along with eugenol and other terpenes with documented repellent activity against multiple insect species. A study examining lemon balm essential oil found repellency rates against mosquitoes exceeding 97% in controlled laboratory conditions using concentrated preparations. The fresh plant releases these compounds continuously, but physically crushing or bruising the foliage triggers a far more intense release. Rubbing the leaves directly on exposed skin gives you a natural, genuinely pleasant-smelling repellent that works well across a reasonable window of outdoor time. One critical growing note: lemon balm spreads aggressively. Plant it in open garden beds without restraint and it will claim territory fast. Grow it in containers or sink a container into the ground to limit root spread. Position pots near seating areas, doorways, and pathways where you pass by regularly. That incidental brushing contact releases oils and keeps the effect going throughout your time outside. Plant number 4 is marigolds. The companion plant mosquitoes genuinely cannot stand. Most gardeners see marigolds as cheerful, affordable filler flowers, orange or yellow splashes of color at the border. What they are actually looking at is one of the most underestimated plants in the entire garden world. Tagetes species have a reputation built on real science that goes far beyond what their appearance suggests. In Mexico, where tagetes are native, they have been cultivated since pre-Columbian times, used both as ceremonially significant flowers and as practical pest deterrents. Traditional agriculture throughout Mexico and Central America used marigolds interplanted among vegetables to reduce overall pest pressure. That practice traveled with seeds and knowledge as populations spread globally. The repellent activity in tagetes comes from compounds found throughout the foliage and root system, including thiophene that are distributed across the entire plant. Marigold root secretions have demonstrated the ability to deter not just insects but nematodes in the surrounding soil. The foliage produces a strong, distinctive odor that many insects, including mosquitoes, actively avoid. Research has confirmed that Tagetes minuta essential oil shows significant mosquito-repelling activity, and certain studies have documented larvicidal effects against common mosquito species. Here is what makes marigolds genuinely special for home gardeners. They ask very little of you: full sun, reasonable soil, regular deadheading to extend the bloom period. They are annuals in most climates, replanted each season, but the investment is minimal and the return is generous. An added benefit worth appreciating: marigolds attract beneficial predatory insects, including parasitic wasps and hoverflies that prey on other garden pests. You are not just building a mosquito barrier, you are constructing a multi-layered ecological defense system. Plant number 5 is basil, the kitchen herb mosquitoes genuinely despise. Here is a fact that completely changes how most people think about their herb garden. Basil, the same plant you are trimming for pasta and bruschetta, is also one of the more potent mosquito-repelling plants you can position near your outdoor living space. Ocimum basilicum has a second identity that most home gardeners never uncover. Basil has been cultivated for over 5,000 years, originating in tropical regions of Asia and Africa where insects do not just irritate, they transmit serious disease. Traditional use in those regions involved placing basil plants near windows, doorways, and gathering areas for insect deterrence. In parts of India, holy basil, Ocimum tenuiflorum, was planted near homes for spiritual reasons, but also for intensely practical ones. It reduced insect pressure and made the surrounding air far more tolerable during summer heat. Modern research confirms the mechanism. Basil essential oil contains eugenol, linalool, and methylchavicol, compounds with well-documented repellent activity against Aedes, Culex, and Anopheles mosquito species. A comprehensive study found that Ocimum basilicum essential oil demonstrated 100% repellency against certain mosquito species in laboratory conditions at standard concentrations. Here is the practical advantage basil holds over many other plants on this list. You are already motivated to grow it, water it, prune it, and harvest it regularly. All of that handling releases aromatic oils into the surrounding air. The plant does not need to be processed to do its job. Proximity and casual contact are enough. Grow it in large pots near outdoor eating areas, near the grill, or directly on the patio table. The oils released during regular leaf harvesting deliver a burst of repellent activity exactly when and where you need it. Plant number 6 is catnip, the plant that outperformed DEET in a university laboratory. This is the one I mentioned at the start, catnip nepeta, famous for sending cats into a rolling frenzy. Also, according to peer-reviewed science, one of the most effective natural mosquito repellents ever formally studied. In 2001, researchers at Iowa State University published findings that genuinely sent ripples through the entomology world. They found that nepetalactone, the active compound in catnip, repelled mosquitoes approximately 10 times more effectively than DEET at equivalent concentrations under laboratory conditions. That study became one of the most referenced findings in natural pest management research. A plant most people associate with feline entertainment was quietly housing one of the most powerful insect-repelling compounds found in nature. Catnip has been used in traditional herbalism for centuries as a medicinal tea and a calming remedy, but folk use as an insect deterrent appears throughout historical records in Europe and early American communities as well. People rubbed crushed leaves on skin before working outdoors. They hung dried bundles near doorways and windows. The traditional knowledge existed long before laboratory analysis confirmed the mechanism. Here is how nepetalactone differs from DEET and how it operates. DEET works by essentially masking the chemical signals that mosquitoes use to detect nearby hosts. Nepetalactone appears to do something more direct. It triggers an active avoidance response in the mosquito's nervous system. It does not simply obscure the signal. It sends a separate signal that registers as a directive to go somewhere else entirely. Growing catnip is almost embarrassingly easy. It is a perennial herb in the mint family, thrives in most climates, tolerates poor soil, and spreads readily. Contain it in pots if you want to manage the spread. Crush the leaves and apply to skin for a direct effect. And yes, if you have cats, you will need a protective cage around this plant or an elevated container out of their reach. Plant number 7 is rosemary, the Mediterranean shield. Rosemary has been so thoroughly incorporated into kitchens worldwide that people forget it originated somewhere wild and purposeful. In its native Mediterranean coastal habitat, Salvia rosmarinus developed a formidable chemical defense system to survive in dry, rocky terrain without any human assistance. That defense system is exactly what serves your garden today. Ancient Romans grew rosemary extensively for culinary, ritual, and medicinal purposes. Roman households positioned it near doorways and communal areas, where even without understanding the chemistry, they observed that the aromatic oils it constantly released deterred insects and freshened the surrounding environment. Centuries of careful observation built a reputation as a protective plant that was entirely earned. The science confirms what those observations suggested. Rosemary essential oil contains camphor, alpha-pinene, and 1,8-cineolu, all of which carry documented repellent activity against multiple insect species, including mosquitoes. Research comparing rosemary oil against other botanical repellents found meaningful deterrence against Aedes aegypti and Culex species. The concentration of these compounds in fresh rosemary is high enough that the plant continuously releases them into surrounding air, creating a passive deterrent zone wherever it is planted in density. Rosemary is one of the most low-maintenance perennial herbs available to gardeners. In mild climates, it survives year-round with minimal attention. In colder regions, container growing and overwintering indoors works well. It prefers poor, well-drained soil, full sun, and resents overwatering. Plant clusters near seating areas, fire pits, and doorways. When you want to amplify the effect during an outdoor gathering, throw fresh sprigs onto hot coals or an open fire. The smoke from burning rosemary has been used for centuries as an insect clearing technique at outdoor gatherings, and it genuinely delivers. Plant number 8 is peppermint, the cooling, repelling, double-duty herb. Most people know peppermint only as a flavor: tea, gum, toothpaste, candy. It is so completely associated with freshness and taste that its outdoor utility gets entirely overlooked. That is worth correcting because Mentha piperita is one of the most effective contact repellents in the plant world and grows with an enthusiasm that makes it among the easiest plants to maintain. Ancient Greek and Roman cultures used mint in rituals, medicine, and food preparation. Chinese and Ayurvedic traditions applied various mint species across digestive, respiratory, and topical uses. The use of mint as an insect deterrent appears consistently across historical records from multiple continents. Medieval European households scattered fresh mint leaves on floors and near sleeping areas, specifically to keep flies, fleas, and other insects away. The primary compound responsible for peppermint's repellent activity is menthol, along with menthone and pelargon, a compound present in higher concentrations in pennyroyal mint that has historically ranked among the most powerful natural insect deterrents ever used. Research on peppermint oil has confirmed repellent activity against multiple mosquito species. Studies have also demonstrated larvicidal properties, meaning peppermint oil can disrupt mosquito larval development in standing water at relatively low concentrations. That particular finding has genuinely practical value. Adding small amounts of peppermint essential oil to standing water in unused containers or bird baths you cannot empty provides a natural larvicidal treatment that addresses the mosquito problem before adult mosquitoes ever become airborne. Grow peppermint in containers because it will absolutely take over any open bed given the opportunity. Place pots near seating, doorways, and outdoor kitchen areas. Bruise leaves regularly to keep oil release active. Plant number 9 is lemon thyme, the underdog with surprisingly strong research behind it. Lemon thyme does not have lavender's dramatic cultural history or catnip's headline-grabbing laboratory results. It is a small, spreading, low-growing herb that most gardeners tuck between pavers or use as a fragrant ground cover in rock gardens. And it turns out it is genuinely one of the most effective mosquito-repelling plants available when used correctly. Thymus citriodorus is a hybrid of common thyme and wild lemon thyme with centuries of presence in European herb gardens. Thyme broadly carries an extraordinary medicinal and practical history. Ancient Egyptians incorporated it into embalming preparations. Greeks used it in temple incense and associated it with courage and clarity. Romans spread it across Europe as both culinary and medicinal plant. The thyme-scented Mediterranean coastal air that ancient writers described as invigorating aligns precisely with what we now understand about thymol, the primary bioactive compound across the thyme family. The research that makes lemon thyme stand out was published in the Journal of the American Mosquito Control Association. Researchers specifically tested lemon thyme among several plants for mosquito-repellent activity and found that applying crushed lemon thyme leaves directly to skin provided repellency comparable to a 25% DEET formulation for approximately 60 to 90 minutes of outdoor protection. That is a genuinely impressive outcome for a fresh plant used in the simplest possible way. The mechanism involves the release of thymol, carvacrol, and citral compounds from the crushed foliage. The elevated citral content specific to lemon thyme adds repellent activity beyond what standard thyme offers, making it particularly suited for this purpose. Planted along pathways and between pavers where foot traffic will crush it gently throughout the day. Grow it in containers near seating areas where you can brush your hand across it periodically to trigger oil release. And plant number 10 is lemongrass, the ancient world's original insect management solution. This is the one I held for last because lemongrass may represent the oldest, most globally widespread, and most thoroughly validated natural mosquito repellent that human beings have ever used. Cymbopogon citratus has been used in ancient Egypt, throughout the Indian subcontinent, across Southeast Asia, and across the African continent, all independently, across thousands of years, and all arriving at the same fundamental conclusion about this plant. Lemongrass appears in ancient Ayurvedic texts as both a medicinal and protective plant. Egyptian records reference aromatic grasses used in keeping insects away from living in gathering spaces. Traditional practices across sub-Saharan Africa, India, and Southeast Asia all consistently incorporated lemongrass and related Cymbopogon species in managing insect pressure around homes and village gathering areas. These were not connected discoveries. Multiple civilizations with no contact with each other, separated by continents and centuries, observed the same thing independently. When that level of convergent human experience exists around a single plant, the scientific community has a responsibility to investigate it carefully, and they have. The compound at the center of lemongrass's effectiveness is geraniol, and lemongrass contains it in extraordinarily high concentrations along with citral, nerol, and myrcene. Research published across multiple peer-reviewed journals has identified geraniol as one of the most effective natural mosquito repellents ever formally studied. Clinical trials have shown protection times against Aedes mosquitoes, the species associated with dengue, Zika, and chikungunya, reaching up to 2.5 hours with geraniol-based formulations at modest concentrations. Comparative research found geraniol-based preparations competitive with low concentrations of DEET in genuine field conditions. That is not fringe or preliminary science. That is a robust, peer-reviewed body of evidence pointing in one clear direction. There is an additional layer of significance here. Lemongrass does not only repel adult mosquitoes. Studies have shown that lemongrass oil applied to standing water at low concentrations has larvicidal effects, disrupting mosquito development before insects ever become airborne adults. You are addressing the problem at multiple stages of the mosquito life cycle simultaneously with a single plant. From a practical standpoint, lemongrass is a tropical grass that thrives in full sun, heat, and regular moisture. In warm climates, it is perennial and will grow into impressively large clumps over multiple seasons. In cooler climates, container growing with overwintering indoors works perfectly. It is a fast grower that can reach 4 feet in a single season. Position it at the perimeter of your outdoor space, near entry points and around seating. Crushing the stalks near the base releases the highest concentration of geraniol into the surrounding air and creates that immediate citrus fragrance that registers to mosquitoes as a clear signal to retreat. Here is what genuinely ties this entire list together. When ancient communities placed aromatic plants around their homes, they were not performing rituals without understanding. They were conducting empirical biology without laboratories. They observed outcomes. They repeated what worked. They refined their approach over generations, and they arrived at exactly the same answers that clinical trials, field studies, and biochemical analysis are confirming today. The ancient world was not primitive. It was extraordinarily attentive. These 10 plants, centuries of traditional knowledge, and a growing body of modern science are all pointing in exactly the same direction. You do not need to drench yourself in synthetic chemicals to enjoy time outdoors. You do not need expensive gadgets, toxic coils, or anything that arrives in an aerosol can. You need lavender along your pathways, citronella grass near your patio, basil on your outdoor table, catnip in containers where the research says it competes with synthetic alternatives, rosemary clustered near your fire pit, and lemongrass anchoring your perimeter and doing what it has been doing for communities worldwide for thousands of years. These plants do not merely solve a pest problem, they make your garden smell extraordinary. They attract pollinators. Several are edible and genuinely useful in the kitchen. Many carry medicinal value that both ancient traditions and modern researchers agree on. You are building a garden that is more alive, more fragrant, more productive, and more connected to deep accumulated botanical wisdom than anything manufactured in a lab and pressurized into a can. Before you head to the garden center, one thing worth knowing: plant quality genuinely matters here. Lavender grown true to species from a reputable nursery will carry significantly more aromatic oil and deliver far stronger repellent activity than an unlabeled generic variety from a discount bin. For citronella grass specifically, confirm you are getting true Cymbopogon nardus or Cymbopogon winterianus, not the decorative look-alike varieties often marketed as mosquito plants that contain little to no actual citronellol. For every herb on this list, a more robust and aromatic plant is a harder-working plant. Drop a comment below and tell me which plant you are most excited to add to your garden this season. Are you drawn to the fragrant classics like lavender and rosemary, the science-backed powerhouses like catnip and lemongrass, or the kitchen garden multitaskers like basil and peppermint? I genuinely read every comment and love hearing which direction you are going with your outdoor space. If you have not subscribed yet, hit that button now and ring the notification bell. We post every single week and there is a lot more coming that you do not want to miss.